Hello, I'm Zaccura and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be talking about Inktober again. And I'm going to be talking about my experience with Inktober and things that I've learned and just the overall pros and cons, and also going to be talking about a bit more specifically into my Inktober story and my plans for that and my plans for the future. No, but really just stuff that I'm going to be doing on this channel in regards to style and so forth. If you haven't seen my compilation video yet of all my Inktober drawings, I really recommend you go and check that out. It's only 7 minutes long and it's backed with some really cool music from a really awesome musician, and it is the overall story and will make a lot of things I'm going to be discussing in this video a lot more clear. So I'll have that linked in a card and in the description box so you can go and check that out. First I'm going to just start off with the pros and cons list. Starting with the pros. First pro would be productivity. So if you're drawing every day, you're going to be pretty darn productive. I personally was more productive in 1 month than I usually am in 3 months, which is crazy. And really it's just specifically for me, I guess you could say, because I got really ambitious at the beginning of Inktober, and by day 2 I just put all this detail into this drawing. I don't know, I was just really being super optimistic that day, and I just put all this detail and cross-hatching and ink wash, and then day 3 I just went even harder. Like, oh my god, that was so much detail in that one. And then after that I was like, well, I set myself up for this, I gotta keep going, gotta be consistent. So these ended up not just being little sketchbook things. No, these were like full on 4-hour plus illustrations, and 4 hours was like minimum. Most of them took longer, which I'll be talking about that more later. But yes, productivity. You are going to be very productive if you stick with Inktober, and not to say you have to be as ambitious as I am, but if you're drawing every day, that's being productive, and I think any productivity is a good thing. Second pro is practice. Whatever medium you're going to be choosing, and by that I mean within the realm of ink, because it's Inktober, so whether you're going to be working with fine liners or like me, dip pen, quill pens, whatever, with India ink, you know, you're going to get a lot of practice with that. And I definitely have gotten much better with using quill pens / dip pens. I don't know, I always say quill pens, but at the same time I think they're just called dip pens, but whatever, I'm gonna be calling them in between for now. Number 3 would be accomplishments. I personally accomplished a lot during Inktober, and the things that I accomplished were things that I really wasn't sure I'd be able to do. And if it wasn't for Inktober, I don't think I ever would have, actually gone and did it, because I thought I wouldn't be good enough. In particular, things like detailed backgrounds and perspectives, and storytelling wise, being able to convey a story without the aid of narration, to really express the emotion and the actions and convey a complete tale without actually telling the tale. That was definitely a stretch for my writing abilities, and it came out not so bad, and so that's an accomplishment. And I don't think I would have went into doing this project if it wasn't for Inktober, and so I would have never really accomplished these things. Like the backgrounds, I have always been very iffy about my backgrounds, and I've always been a little like, oh no, I suck at doing backgrounds, can't do backgrounds, dreading the backgrounds. But because of this Inktober story, I knew that there was going to be a lot of backgrounds. I was kind of forced to just go ahead and do it, and I didn't do so bad, which was something that I was pretty proud of and happy with, and it gave me a lot of confidence, because I know that in the future that I can do it. I can actually draw backgrounds, and they're not too bad. Number 4 is my first completed project, and this is, I guess, really more personal for me, but this is really my first completed art project that I've really done. Even though this is my second year participating in Inktober, I don't really consider like just doing the regular type of Inktober as really a project. I mean, technically you could say it's a project because you set yourself to do something at the beginning of the month, which is to draw every day in ink. But I don't really call that, really a project. But in this case, I gave myself a goal, which was to tell the story. I had the outline, I had the rough prompts that I gave to myself at the beginning of the month, and I knew overall what I wanted this project to look like when it was finished, and then I completed it. So I consider that a project. I consider that a first completed art project. So I was I'm pretty happy about that, and for the first time I can actually really hold something in my hands, in this case a stack of illustrations, and be like, done, there, did it. Complete. Even though there are possible expansions of this project, but which I'll get into more later in this video, but overall I can say that this is a completed thing, and I'm pretty proud about that. And so that's, I guess, it's a pro if you're doing something like I did, which is making a story out of your Inktober drawings. Then that is a pretty big pro if you've never done a project. And just having something completed really has given me, it's gotten my feet wet when it comes to personal projects, because I have been working on other personal projects such as a graphic novel series, but those are longer projects that take a lot more time. And I've just never had that feeling of completion. I've never really completed something. It was always more like, oh, it's still a work in progress. Oh, it still needs to do this. Oh, it still needs that. And this was the first time that I can just say, boom, the end, done, it's finished. And it's not perfect, for sure. But to quote Jake Parker, finish not perfect. It's better to finish something that isn't perfect than it is to wait around and hoping and waiting for it and never completing it in the hopes that it will be perfect someday magically, so it's not perfect, but it's finished, and I think that's pretty cool. The next pro would be you're part of something, and this is just for overall Inktober, not my whole Inktober story thing, but just if you're taking part of Inktober, you're part of something. You're part of something that's bigger than just you. And, as artists, we tend to be cave dwellers. We tend to be kind of a one-man show, just doing our own thing. And true, we share it with other people sometimes when we feel like it. But we tend to be doing these things alone and by ourselves. And even though we may prefer that, I personally don't like showing, my scripts and stuff to people if I'm still working on it. But at the same time, it can be a kind of a lonely process. You're going through these struggles, you're doing things, and you're just like, oh, what do I do? Why is this only happening to me? Even though that's not true, when we actually all go through the same things, the same struggles when it comes to art or writing. But when you're doing it alone, you can always, you feel like you're alone. You feel like, you gotta just deal with it yourself. And when you're part of Inktober, though, and you go and you see all the other people who are participating in Inktober, you see oh, you're not alone. People are struggling with the same things, like burnout, which I'll be talking about these cons and stuff in the con section. And you can see that they're all struggling with the same things. They're all going through the same things, and you guys can, you can just really cheer each other on, and it's just really motivating and inspiring to see people doing it alongside you, and it gives you motivation to keep going and to keep drawing every day. And so yeah, I think being a part of something is just really great. I personally gained new friends. I even made some fans, which was like, what? People who actually admire my work and stuff. That was kind of crazy. But yeah, I met some really great people, talked with some really great people, and we just cheered each other on, and it's just really great. And I think that I wouldn't have gotten that if it wasn't for Inktober. So yeah, being a part of something, I think that's really cool. And the last pro I'm going to be mentioning is routine. After a while, you will start to fall into a routine. I mean, this is just, it has to happen naturally if you're going to be sticking with it for the whole month. I think part of the reason why some people can't make it throughout the whole month is because they it just never happens, that they can never find the routine in their day, and it ends up just being this mess of how am I going to get this drawing out today, how am I going to do this, I have no inspiration, no. So after a while though, if you keep doing it, you will fall into some kind of routine. And I think that routine is good, especially if it's a healthy routine, which as artists, we tend to joke around a lot about, pulling all-nighters, or, just drawing at an ungodly time at night or wee hours of the morning. And, we joke about it, and we almost wear it as a badge of honor, like, oh, yeah, I'm a true artist because I pull all-nighters and I don't get any sleep, and I'm super, I have, like, bags under my eyes or whatever, and, it's true that if you do that, I guess, you're working hard, but at the same time, let's be honest, that's not healthy to be doing that all the time. And if you're doing that, oftentimes that means you're less productive during the day, and that also means your social life is probably suffering, and your physical health is suffering, and that can all of those things can really put a damper on your mental health as well. And I think just overall, because though it's hard to change that though, because creativity is a sneaky, mischievous creature, and it always sneaks up on us at the worst times. Hey, I've gotten that too, where I was just like, I have this really great idea for a drawing, but it's like 2 a.m. in the morning. You know what? I'm just gonna do it anyway. And I think my fellow artists here can relate to that feeling. And, but not to say that after Inktober I'm not going to have those days again, but during Inktober I did fall into a routine. I was drawing at around the same time every day, I was finishing at around the same time every day, and I was uploading it around the same time every day. True, there were exceptions from day to day because things pop up and you can't draw on that day at the right time, and you end up staying really late anyway. But overall, I fell into a routine, and I think that anyone who does Inktober and they trudge on and keep doing it will fall into a routine. And I think that routine may carry over, because after Inktober was finished, I found myself, like, the routine continued. I actually still drew the next day at the same time, and I drew the next day at the same time, and who knows how long this will last, but at the end of the day, I think it's a good thing to have. If you can organize that mischievous creature creativity into a healthy routine, I think that is a good thing, and I think Inktober helps with that. So now I'm going to be talking about the cons. And the first con is pretty much the biggest con, really. And I think it's like the main con. I think the other cons are kind of sub-cons of this one. But the biggest con is burnout. If you're doing anything every single day without any break, you're gonna start feeling burnt out. That's just how it works. That's why we have weekends. But either way, like, if you're doing anything for 31 days straight without any break, you're gonna feel burnt out, and drawing is definitely no exception. At around day 12 or 13, I was really starting to feel the effects of burnout. Before that, I was just kind of, pushing the little voice aside, like, oh, shut up, you're not burnt out, don't worry about it, everything's gonna be fine. Then around day 12, it just got bad, and I was just like, okay, time to accept it, I'm getting burnt out. And over the next few days, it just kind of got worse and worse, until eventually I was really seriously considering just taking a few days off and then continuing the project a little bit into November, because either way I was going to complete this thing, but I was really considering, like, oh man, I really need a break. And I know some of you may be like, why the heck didn't you just do that, like, big deal. You guys are so sweet, but I'm stubborn, and I told myself I was going to be doing this every day for the whole month, and I was going to do it within the month, so I suffered and went ahead and did it anyway. Yay. And I'm glad I did it like that, because I can really say that I actually did what I said I was gonna do, which is good. But I found that actually after a while, the burnout feeling actually starts to fade, and I think that's just natural. Your body, if you keep doing something, your body has to find a way to cope, and after a while, I just started noticing that the burnout feeling was not as bad anymore. It was actually kind of fading away. I guess it just kind of became part of my life. Like I guess that was part of the routine. I think the burnout came before the routine, and that was the problem. But once routine came into play, it just kind of became something that I was doing every day. And not to say it was all rainbows and unicorns at that point, but it just became routine and something that wasn't as bad, I guess. But yeah. The next con would be stress, because you are working on a deadline, and you know, this can be very stressful if you know that you have to get this thing done by the end of the day, and you know that you're only like halfway finished, and you're ready, and you can see the time ticking by, and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to finish this by the end of the day? And especially for me, because like I said, I set myself up with some seriously detailed illustrations. These things take forever to finish, and I also knew that I couldn't not finish it within that day and then finish it the next day or do 2 the next day or something like that. There was no way that I could do 2 of these illustrations in one day, because they just take forever. So that was definitely an added stress, because I knew I had to get it done by the end of the day. And working on a deadline can be very stressful, and you're basically always working on a deadline. And imagine if you went to work or whatever, and they say, oh, you have to get this done by the end of the week, right? Boom, there's your deadline. And oftentimes the stress doesn't really come until like the day or 2 before the deadline comes. Well, with Inktober, it's basically like them coming to you and say, oh, you gotta get this project done by the end of the day. And you're like, what? How am I supposed to do this? And you're basically in that stressful mode for the entire month. And I think that's really just mainly because of me, because these illustrations take at least 4 hours, and that's if I'm like constantly doing it, not taking any breaks, which once burnout started showing itself, I had to make changes, and that's where the routine came. I had to find a way to keep drawing every day without it becoming too stressful or getting too burnt out. So I was taking more breaks because I had to. And then that meant that it was taking more time every day. So even though I was kind of siphoning out from the burnout, it was siphoning into the stress, because I knew that it was taking longer and that it was going to be harder to meet the deadline every day. But again, if you're not as ambitious as I was, not as crazy as me, and you're just doing like the normal Inktober way, which is just you have the sketchbook and you're doing something kind of simple every day, then it may not be as stressful, because if you're only drawing for like an hour or 2 every day, it can be easier to find that time, because finding 5 hours out of your day to draw is a stress in itself to do that. And so if you're only doing simpler illustrations, then it's less stressful. But still, working on a deadline is stressful. Let's just face that fact. I mean, if someone came to me and they said, hey, I want you to make me 31 illustrations in 1 month, and these are full on detailed, super long taking illustrations, I'd be like, boy, get out of here, I can't do that. But because of Inktober, it just, the sweet talk of Inktober, oh, it's just a drawing a day. Not a big deal. Yeah, but nonetheless, it was stressful to work on that deadline. And the last con would be cutting corners. And I wish I could say that I love all of my illustrations and they're the best that they could possibly be for Inktober. That would be a lie. The truth is that a lot of the illustrations, maybe not like all of them, definitely not all of them, but there are a few illustrations within my Inktober series that I was not very happy with. And, if I were to do it again, it would be better. Or like I wanted to redo them, but I just simply couldn't. And so, I can still technically say with confidence that all the illustrations were the best that I could do at the time under the circumstances. But because of the circumstances, like the deadline, some things had to be, less high quality. Some of the illustrations I wasn't very happy with, but I just couldn't redo them because there wasn't enough time to redo them. And on a couple of the illustrations, I actually had to take the photo while the paper was still wet, so the paper was actually very warped. And I try to take the photo in the best way so it doesn't seem that way, but some of them still seemed a little warpy. and not so happy about that. And overall, there are just a lot of there are a lot of imperfections in the illustrations, and so I had to cut corners, I guess you could say. And I'm never happy about doing that because I always want my things to be absolutely perfect, but I just couldn't. When you're working on such a tight deadline, you tend to have to cut corners in order to get the job done. But there you go, you're getting the job done. That's the most important part. You're cutting corners for a greater good, and that is getting this project finished. Because if I didn't cut those corners, the project never would have been finished. And that's the main thing here. To quote Jake Barker, again, finished, not perfect. It's definitely not perfect, but it's finished. It's done, and I think those imperfections are simply things to think about for the future, and to realize my limits and things that I can do under a certain deadline and work around that. And it's just things to keep in mind for new and for future projects. So that's my list of pros and cons, and really to sum it all up, I definitely say the pros outweigh the cons. I think Inktober was a very, very positive experience, both this year and last year. And that's why I would definitely recommend anyone who's on the fence of whether they should give Inktober a try, give it a try. I mean, it's not like anyone's forcing you to do it, so even if you don't like it, you can just not do it. I think people tend to be like, oh, should I do this? They feel like they're getting into some contract, but this is not a contract. This is just simply about self-growth. That is what Inktober is supposed to be about. And if it's not working for you, then just don't do it. But I definitely say, give it a try, because those pros that I mentioned are pros that I think they're just really great. Things that I never would have had if it wasn't for Inktober. I never would have stretched my artistic abilities with backgrounds, or stretched my writing abilities and my storytelling abilities with telling a story within a limited amount of time with just illustrations. And not to mention, it was a story that was really ragtag together. I mean, I came up with the concept a few days before October, and it was just so tight, and I had no idea what I was doing really, but it ended up not so bad. And I never would have done this project if it wasn't for Inktober. And so all the positive things that happened was thanks to that. So thanks Jake Parker, thank you. Now, as for whether or not I would do this again, yeah, I definitely would do Inktober again, that's for sure. But would I do the same concept with these really complicated illustrations and then also telling the story through them? I don't know. Something would definitely have to change, because as I said, I basically didn't do anything for the whole month other than Inktober. Let's just be honest here. I had no free time. Every minute that I had, I was drawing or taking the photo or uploading or editing the video, because I still had to make videos during the month. Gotta put content out there for my YouTube peeps, right? So it was really hard to do it. I didn't have really find time to do anything else. So that's not necessarily the most positive experience from this overall experience, and so that was something would have to change. And not to say that I wouldn't do an Inktober, a story-related Inktober project again. I just would probably have to do it a little differently. Something would have to change. Maybe the drawings would have to be simpler or smaller or something like that. I don't know how I'm gonna be feeling next year. Maybe I'm gonna be all wide-eyed and optimistic again, and I'll do something really similar. But I don't know. That's a decision for future Zaccura to make next year. But as for now, overall, I'd say this was a really positive experience. It was very hard, but I'm very glad that I did it, and I don't have regrets. Those imperfections that I mentioned in the cons, the cutting corners and things, those are just little things. Overall, though, the project is finished, and I'm very happy about that. And I learned a lot about myself and my capabilities. I really learned what I was really capable of, rather than just guessing and, devaluing myself, as I find that I do a lot. So now I guess I'll talk a little bit about this illustration that you're looking at, as well as talking more specifically about this Inktober story and where I plan to take it, as well as where I plan to take my art style in the future. So first, what you're seeing me draw or what you have been seeing me draw is the cover art that I made after Inktober was over, which is why it's digitally and not traditionally. This is the cover art for the story, which I named String to the Other Side. And I wanted to do digital artwork because, come on, I took the whole month off of doing any digital artwork. I wanted to do some digital artwork. I also wanted to work in color, so I went ahead and made it digitally. And it was really fun, but I also noticed that I was really out of practice when it came to digital artwork. Some of the line work was actually I found very difficult. I gotten so used to working with quill pens that, working with the graphics tablet pen, it was harder and weird and stuff, but I got used to it again by the end of the illustration. Also ended up being very quick. It only took me around an hour and a half to do the whole thing, and that's mostly because I was finicking around a lot with the font and such for the title. I had no idea what I wanted the title to look like, so I just went through my fonts like 100 times until I found the font that I felt looked the coolest for my story. Also had fun with the colors. I had no idea actually what color her outfits would be. I mean, I actually did have a little bit of an idea. If you've seen my first Inktober video where I talked about how this project was going to be, I showed a little snapshot of the initial sketch of Willow, the very first iteration of Willow. She was in color. But that was kind of like, whatever. I just wanted to use my colored pencils, so I just kind of whatever. But as for the actual colors that she would have, I wasn't really sure because the whole thing was in black and white, so I kind of just always imagined her in black and white now. But I always knew that her hat would be kind of green. That was from the beginning. For some reason, I just always envisioned it as being like this yellowish green. And I also knew that the scarf would have to be very dark, her pants would have to be darker than her shirt, but the color, because that's how I drew her during Inktober, but I didn't know exactly what colors they were, so I ended up going for these kind of neutral-ish, reddish tones and purple in her outfit, and I think overall it looks pretty cool, and I like it, so she now has color. Yay! Now, as for what I'm going to be doing with String to the Other Side, so I have been kind of on the fence of, should I get it printed as it is? Should I take it farther and write like a whole book out of it? Or should I just leave it as it is and just don't touch it anymore? Well, I've gotten so much support from you guys, from all of my social media sites, and from people in IRLs to actually get this thing printed in one form or another as a physical book that you can actually, hold in your hands. And I was kind of like iffy, like, oh no, well, it's not perfect, no, me and my perfectionist attitude. But I figured, you know what, maybe it is a good idea to get this thing printed as it is. And I have talked a little bit with some of my art friends about actually making a book out of String to the Other Side, like actually instead of having it have no words, but actually writing a whole like children's chapter book and then having the images pop up throughout the book. But that would take a lot more time, a lot more work, and as of right now, at least in my situation, I'm not sure if I want to dedicate that time to it as of right now. Basically, I'm taking a break from it for now, but I'm definitely not discounting the possibility of turning String to the Other Side into an actual chapter book. But I did decide that, even if I'm not going to be making that anytime very soon, why not get it printed as it is right now as something? Because like I said, it is a completed project as it is. It is a story in itself without having to have words. So why not just get it printed as it is right now, and in the future, if I do decide to make it into a chapter book, I can still do that. There's nothing stopping me from doing that, right? So I figured, why not give it a shot? I've never printed a book before. I've never had a physical thing, a physical product that I can hold. So why not give it a try? Why not get it actually printed? And so that's something to look forward to, because I do plan on getting String to the Other Side printed, and I'm not experienced when it comes to printing, so that's definitely not something like that's coming out next week, probably not even next month, because I need to do a lot of research on how to do it, and I need to find the best way to get it done. So in the meantime, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on it. Was this something that you would like to see? Would you like to see String to the Other Side as it is in a book format? And if so, well, what else would you like to see? Maybe some extras, like extra sketches or author notes or something. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And yeah, and that's something to look forward to in the future. So that's gonna be pretty cool. Also, some fun facts about the characters. So Micheal, his name, the way I spelled his name was Micheal, because I thought that's how you spelled the name. And then I later on found out that it's actually supposed to be spelled with an AEL, not an EAL. And I actually realized this pretty early on, but I was just like, you know what? No, this is my Micheal. Let's just stick. He's an EAL Micheal. And I'm pretty sure, isn't that like a variation of how you spell Micheal? Like, I'm pretty sure you can actually spell Micheal with an EAL. Or maybe that's like Micheal or something, I don't know. But either way, he's my Micheal. He's Micheal, that's how it works. And also with Choo Choo, okay. Here's a story about Michael's little friend, monkey lemur, that kind of looks like a cat character. The pointing monkey, that's what I referred to him as. But his name was originally going to be Choo Choo, and I actually mentioned that on all of my social media accounts, I think, maybe. Anyway, I named him Choo Choo, and then someone on one of my social media accounts actually asked me, like, oh, was this inspired by Choo Choo from the anime Revolutionary Girl Utena? And I have heard of that anime, but I've never watched it. And there you go, that's what I get for not keeping up with super popular famous anime. There is apparently another character out there who is named Choo Choo, and not only that, it is, guess what, a monkey. And it's a monkey named Choo Choo. What? Oh my god, that was a facepalm moment for sure. But yeah, after that I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll have to change the name at some point. I couldn't come up with anything else. So for now, he remains as Choo Choo, but if I ever actually get this thing printed or in a storybook, I will have to change the name to something. I don't know, hey, maybe do you guys have any names for the pointing monkey lemur cat character? Maybe I'll pick one. You guys can put that in the comment section. What do you think the name should be? Just not Choo Choo. Now, if you're curious about whether I'm going to be sticking with this style, I don't know if any of you are curious about that, but if you are, I'm going to be answering that question because I wanted to. Yes, okay. So I have been actually getting a lot of people, new followers and so forth on social media, and like the number one thing they say is, oh, you have such a unique style, I love your style and stuff, it's so cute. And I'm like, wait a minute, but this is only my style for this month. This is not my normal style, because if you have been following me before, you know that I mainly do more anime manga influenced work, and for Inktober I decided to actually do something different, and that's why she's drawn Willow and Micheal and so forth. The whole thing is done in a more cartoony style that's really different than my normal stuff. But that's not my normal style, and so I was like starting to get kind of concerned, like, gosh, all these new people, they're gonna be pretty surprised when they see my normal work after Inktober is finished. But you know, what can I say? I like drawing anime manga influenced styled characters. It's just, right now at least in my journey, that is something that is just really interesting to me. And not to say that I'm like abandoning this style for Willow and Micheal. I would never abandon them, they're my babies. And I actually grew quite fond of the characters and the style, and it's definitely going to be something that I have, and I'm definitely not going to be abandoning it, or I'm not going to just never draw in that style again. I will probably post pictures now and then in that same style, but my main stuff, main work, will probably still be in my normal older style. And you know, some would say that this style that I did for Inktober is more unique and more special. You know, maybe I would get more popularity if I stuck with this Inktober style, because it is very unique. It is something that people would probably recognize, especially if I kept drawing it and it kind of evolved more into my own thing. It would probably end up being something like, oh, that's Zaccura's work, it's so recognizable, whatever. Not to say that there aren't many other styles out there that are similar, but it would be something that is more unique than my other normal anime manga work. But you know, that's not the reason why I'm here. You know, I don't think that should be the reason anyone is sharing their work online. It should never be to be recognized as, you know, something and get more popularity. That's not why I'm here. I'm here simply to share my passion with the world and with you guys, and people either like it or they won't, and there's nothing you can really do about that. I always hope that people will like my work, but at the same time, that isn't the reason that you do it. You know, you should be creating art for yourself, and as selfish as that may sound, I think that's the way artists should work, especially when you're doing personal stuff. It should be personal. It should be stuff that you like to do and makes you happy, and I think when you do that, it's genuine, and there will be people out there who see that and who like it and support you. So there you go. You do your stuff, and draw what you like. I think that's the moral here. Draw what you like, and there are bound to be other people out there who like it too. So I think that brings me to the end of this video. I hope you found it entertaining or informative in some way, and if you did, if you liked it, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss out on upcoming videos. As always, you can find the links to my social media pages in the description box, where you can follow me for daily updates. I'd always also love to hear your comments, and if you have any video suggestions, I'd always love to read them. And until next time, stay awesome, stay inspired, always. See ya!